Good morning, LCU, and welcome to chapel. We have a very special program today. We have the opportunity to get to know our First Lady, Kay McDowell, a little bit better, and just ask her a few questions and just learn a little bit more about her. So what we're going to start with is something that we've already heard, and that's the scripture. So 2 Timothy 1:7 is your favorite verse. Can you tell us a little bit why that verse is so significant to you?
Well, it's significant because, as I began my career and started walking into opportunities that I felt like God was leading me into, I started having a feeling of I didn't belong. I felt timid. And I leaned to that scripture because I realized that that's not a feeling from God. That's the other source. That's not the truth. That's a lie. Because God gave me the feeling of power, love, and self-discipline. And as long as I was disciplined and worked hard, I could live into the power that He was giving me.
Awesome. So let's paint a picture for our audience today. Tell us a little bit about your background, like where you were born and raised, what your family's like, and where you ended up going to school.
Yeah. Well, I am from a tiny town in Illinois, population 1,100, so I'm a small town girl. And I can relate to a lot of you because I'll ask you guys where you're from, and you'll tell me some town in Texas, and I know it's a small town, so there are a lot of those towns in Texas. Well, that was the case with mine in Illinois. I am a daughter of Bob and Laura Owen. I have one brother who's 3 years older. And my dad, it was interesting because I always say he was a little bit ahead of his time. And Mariah, I know your dad played a pivotal role in your life, as you mentioned during your commencement speech. But my dad, I would go to my dad and I would say, Dad, I'm thinking about being a stewardess. And he would say, well, have you thought about being a pilot? And then I'd say, Dad, I'm thinking about being a nurse. And he said, well, why not be a doctor? And so he subtly was telling me that I had unlimited potential. I didn't have to live into what culture was telling me my role was as a female. And so that was kind of gently woven throughout my life, which I thought was interesting. And I didn't realize it until I reflected back on it many, many years later. But my brother ended up going to Freed-Hardeman College, Freed-Hardeman University in Henderson, Tennessee. It's a very similar university. It's a sister school to Lubbock Christian University. And I, for a while, toyed around with going to Lipscomb and then Harding, and I really didn't want to just follow where my brother went. I wanted to have my own opinion. So I ended up, though, going to Freed-Hardeman, and it was a fabulous experience. And it was, again, very similar. It reminds me a lot of Lubbock Christian University. It was similar in size, and it really was a brilliant launching pad for me. I was able to go there and have success and really live into what my dad and what God was really planning for my life.
Awesome. So President McDowell mentioned yesterday that y'all met at Freed-Hardeman. What was your first impression of President McDowell? And don't say tall.
Well, it's interesting because Scott's a couple years older than me, and I watched Scott for many, many years because he graduated 2 years ahead of me. However, he was always back for different alumni functions, and I always just admired Scott because of his character. I noticed his character, and he and I did not date in college. He dated my roommate, and then I ended up going to Nashville, and he was in Nashville, and we reconnected. And we didn't get married while we were in college. God had other plans for us. And we reconnected, thankfully. And it was interesting because right after we reconnected, I went home to my roommate at the time, and I said, I met the man I'm going to marry. And she was like, I've never heard you say that. Oh, my goodness, this is huge. But I knew Scott was the kind of man I wanted to marry. And then after some interesting turn of events where he was living a really fun life of dating many, many different girls, back when you could do that, back when that was okay to date around, to have one date on Friday night and date on Saturday night. Apparently you can't do that anymore. But he was living that life, and I was putting myself in his place. I was putting myself in front of him every chance I could get. I was out, I had started my career working for a PR firm there in Nashville, and so I would just show up where I knew he was going to be. So girls, this is a tip. if there's a guy that you want to get to know, just kind of understand what his rhythms are and put yourself in his place. And so I would just like show up where I knew he was going to be. I know it sounds a little weird, but it was at church oftentimes, and he would always introduce me to a different girl. And and of course, I'm competitive, so that was really good for me actually. But anyway, after about a year, he finally asked me out, and we were married very quickly. We dated for 6 months, and then we're engaged for 6 months and got married.
It took him a year, though?
Pardon?
It took him a year to ask you.
Oh, it took him, I don't, might have been longer than that, because it was a long chain of events. So.
Well, you ended up getting married. So tell us, we see the very professional, outgoing side of President McDowell. Tell us a little bit about the side that we don't see.
Wow. Okay. Well, well, I will say he and I are great partners in that, he's a servant. He helps around the house. He understands that's my love language to help me with projects, whatever that is, and he helps me with those projects. So he is just a real servant. And what you don't see is, and this will probably embarrass them, I'm going to say this, but he's up every morning, way before I ever get up, praying and studying. So, and that's the real Scott McDowell.
How do you propose?
It's funny because he got really excited and he wanted to be traditional and go and talk to my dad. And so he says to me one weekend, I'm going to go to, let's go to see your parents in Illinois. And I'm like, and we're in Nashville, and I was like, I don't really want to do that. I want to do something else. He's like, well, I'm going to see your parents. And then I thought, oh, okay. So we go to see my parents, and my mom and I conveniently leave, and I think we go look at wedding dresses because I knew it was happening. And he talks to my dad, and then we get home. And the funny story is, we all get home, and Scott all of a sudden realizes there's nobody around. Where is everybody? And I've got my dad cornered in the bathroom with my mom. What'd he say? What'd he say? What'd he say? What's he gonna do? What's he gonna do? And then we were leaving town, and there was a song that's very important to us called by Kathy Mattea called "Where Have You Been?" And it's a sweet story about a couple that's been together for a long time, and they end up with Alzheimer's. But it's a song and a story about a very long-term relationship, marriage. And so that was our favorite song. We just love that song because we love the sentiment of being together for a very, very long time. And so he pulled into, right outside of the town where I had been raised, he pulled into a park and had the song. Back when you had cassettes put in the car radio, he had the cassette all queued up to that song, and he started playing that song, and he got out of the car and walked out of his red truck. Actually, it was a truck, Ford Ranger. Got around and pulled me up, and we got outside, and he got down on one knee and asked me to marry him. And then, of course, he did it that way so we could run home and go to my parents back and share the good news with them. So he wanted my family to be involved.
That's a sweet story. So you graduated from college with a degree in communications.
Yes.
You worked in the corporate world for a while, got married, and then you stepped away for full-time motherhood. Mm-hmm. But what are you doing now?
Well, now I am a chief brand officer for Mitchell Communications and an integrated client lead as well. And it's interesting because back when I stepped away from my career, when I had our first son, Alec, everybody was like, "Why? You invested all this time. You've built all this. Why would you?" But Scott and I wanted to be with my kids. I wanted to be able to raise my kids. And it was interesting because when I stepped away, I really didn't even think about it. Everybody was, I didn't really think about it and all that I invested. But I will say, front end load your career. Do something you love and you're passionate about, because you never know what life is going to bring. And the cool thing about, I think, our marriage is that all the way through, Scott knew, I'd be happy to step right back in and work, but I also knew that having a career is not easy. It's hard to make a living, and so I knew what he was facing every day. But when God, it was interesting because when I stepped away, after I thought about it for a while, and I was away for about 10 plus years, 15 maybe, I thought, when I go back, I'm probably going to have to go back at a level that was different than what I'd built up to, because I've been away. But God just honored that decision and created an opportunity for me to step right back into my career, almost as though I had never walked away. And I've been working for Mitchell Communications for about 10 years now. And when they hired me, the agency is headquartered in Northwest Arkansas. We also have an office in New York. We're in Northwest Arkansas because one of our biggest clients is Walmart and Sam's Club. And so we're in the back door of those two companies. But, it's really been a blessing. And today I actually lead, we do work for Mattel. And that's one of my biggest clients. And they're headquartered in Los Angeles doing a project for Barbie and Hot Wheels right now. Also work with a group called Rare Beauty Brands, and they purchase direct-to-consumer beauty brands and market them, and they're based in Boston. So I literally work for, and then Galans is a brand that you guys may have heard about, because you may have a Galans microwave in your dorm room or Galans refrigerator in your dorm room, because they make microwaves and refrigerators that are really perfect for dorm rooms. And they're a China-based company. So I literally work with companies all over. So my location doesn't matter. Where I live does not matter because these companies are all over the place.
So do you work remotely?
I do work remotely.
Awesome.
Yes.
Do you ever travel to those places?
I have traveled. Now with COVID, I've not been traveling. I used to travel quite a bit back and forth to our home office as I was building our team.
Awesome. So you're a successful businesswoman, a wife, and a mother to 3 boys. I can't imagine that's easy to manage, but how have you kept balance in your life?
Well, Scott would probably say I'm not very balanced sometimes, but and my boys may say that too. But it's interesting because I think it's just I do struggle, I will say, with compartmentalizing life. I let things bleed into my life, and because I do work remotely, I think the boys they've seen me at work. As they come home from school, I'm at the office. But yeah, I get to make them, whatever their after school snack. But it's not easy. I will say, you can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time. Mm-hmm. It took a season for me. I could not have done what I do and had newborn babies. Yeah. That would have been really hard. So I really value the season of life that I got to step back just a little bit from it all. But I do enjoy the season of life that I'm in now.
So you and President McDowell are empty nesters now. And although you have Kate in town, you have 2 other young men that are across the country. How do you feel about that?
It's interesting because people have asked me about that, and I think the secret to motherhood is just focusing on that current phase you're in, because it's really sweet. Having adult children is really fun. Having the relationship with them, and like with Alec, being able to talk with him about career things and provide counsel and advice on that, and then Cole being a freshman in college and wrestling through those cool opportunities, and now Cade being in town. I love that because we're able to have the basketball team over from time to time, and love getting to know his friends and getting to know. It's been fun to kind of get to know him through the eyes of other people, mm-hmm. And that's a really powerful thing. So, I guess I could really muster up some kind of mom angst about, being an empty nester, but that's not from God. God wants us just to enjoy the moment and the phase that we're in and the gifts that He's given us today, and realize we have a long history of beautiful love, but it's really important to focus on now.
Okay. So you're here now.
Yes.
But what was your first thought when you knew that y'all were going to be moving to Lubbock, Texas?
I thought this is my husband's dream come true.
Good.
Yeah, I was so excited. I was just like, wow. In fact, when the board of trustees named him, it was a very emotional time because this had really been on his heart for a very long time, and I was just so happy that his dream had come true, and God had blessed him.
So have you found any of your favorite restaurants in town yet?
Well, yeah, I like Table 82.
Okay.
I also like Abuelo's. So, there are several restaurants I like. And then I do like this little, soda shop called, I can't remember the name of it now, but it's really a really cool little, on 34th.
Is it Soda Shack?
Yes, okay. I think, what is it?
Holly Hops.
Holly Hop, that's it. I knew it was that. I knew it was kind of Holly Hop. I like that.
Oh, good. So when you're not going out to restaurants, what do you like to cook? What do you like to cook at home, or do y'all share that responsibility?
Well, we don't share that responsibility because Scott is not particularly good in the kitchen. He has tried, and during those times when I would travel, he would attempt, and he would always make crazy weird things. He'd come up with a venison something or other that he'd make when I was gone, and the boys would be like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're back!" And I kept saying to him, do not go off the Richter scale and make these crazy things. Just make some. So he does have one or two recipes that he has actually gotten pretty good at. But I like to cook because I just enjoy cooking. He's a great sous chef though. He helps me so much. But and I like to cook anything that's anybody's favorite. So I make and this is. You probably have horrible nightmares of this recipe from childhood, but because I never liked it when I was a kid. But Kay loves meatloaf, and so and then Alec loves anything spicy. So I've created this crazy, spicy, fun meatloaf, and I make it traditional for Kay and spicy for Alec. So I just like making anything that anybody loves and they'll eat a lot of. So.
All right, to wrap up, we're going to do a segment that is similar to the Scott on the Spot segment that they did yesterday.
Okay.
But we're calling this Kay off the cuff.
Okay.
So a few rapid fire questions for you. All right. What's your favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Good one. Favorite Bible character?
Ruth.
Okay. When you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh boy, I wanted to be a lot of things. My very first word, believe it or not, was beautician. So that's what my mother tells me. Beautician.
Well, your hair looks great. What's your favorite Starbucks drink?
I like a vanilla latte, grande vanilla latte.
And what is your favorite song of all time?
My what?
Your favorite song of all time.
Oh boy, where have you been? Kathy Mattea.
Very good. Well, we are so glad that you're here, and I'm excited to see y'all step into this new role. Several of us have already gotten to see you engage students on campus, so I just want to say that we see you and we appreciate you. And before we dismiss, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Joanne Long.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Well, First Lady.
Yes.
Miss Kay, on behalf of the women students, women staff, and women faculty, we welcome you into our heart, and thank you so very much for agreeing to be our First Lady.
Thank you.
We love you, and this is a token of our love for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Everyone, let's give one more hand to our First Lady, President Kay McDowell. Our First Lady, Kay McDowell. Awesome.